You've become quite close with Alan Titford and you helped write his biography. How would you describe him?
Well, I didn't actually write his biography. I think Ross Baker had a lot to do with that book, Robbery by Deceit, that was written in 1998. But yeah, along the way, I got involved primarily from the archaeological side initially because his former farm up at Manganui Bluff, there is one of the most beautiful, amazing standing stone circles in the Waitapu Valley right next to it. And many, many archaeological sites in that region, up through the Waipua Forest and all the way to the Hokianga. And initially I was more interested in that side of it, but then I think it was in 2003, because I'm talking about archaeology, I got the backup of a young Maori man who wrote to me and said, "Martin, you white racist, why don't you tell the people about the Treaty of Waitangi?" And I absolutely hated the idea. I mean, what a terrible subject, the drudgery of it all, to have to talk about that. And but a challenge was a challenge, and I had remembered something that had happened in 1992 where there was a splash on the news about a document that had been found, and then it did hush hush. So anyway, I went searching for that source, and from that I ended up interviewing the people that found the document, and that led on to the book I wrote on the treaty about the Littlewood document being the final draft of the Treaty of Waitangi. And then Alan got quite interested in all of that because he saw in it a different interpretation of the Treaty of Waitangi. And we were able to argue that there's only one Treaty of Waitangi, it's in the Maori language. Those are the words. That's the treaty.
So you're saying that the current Treaty of Waitangi, which all settlement claims have been processed through, is not the correct one?
What I'm saying is Hobson actually made the statement talking about the treaty signed at Waitangi. This instrument I consider to be de facto the treaty, and all signatures subsequently obtained are merely testimonials of adherence to the terms of the original document. In other words, he was saying there is only one treaty and it's in the Maori language. And unfortunately, in 1975, a lot of activists argued that we need an English version of the treaty to sit us alongside the Maori treaty and be co-equal to it. So rather than introduce the official back translation of the treaty that was done in 1869, or any of the other direct translations from the Maori, they deliberately pushed that we have what's called a formal royal style version, which is like a very flowery, poetic version that was concocted by James Stewart Freeman from early rough draft notes. And he wrote about 7 of these, and they're all different. So one of those was chosen, and it sat along Te Toritio Waitangi, and then you had the opportunity to muddy the waters because this was radically different from that. This was just early rough draft notes that had been superseded. Everything in there was obsolete. Nothing was taken from the final draft. Now, we did actually have copies of the final draft. These had been sent to archives overseas by James Reddy Clendon, and also by the head of the American Expeditionary Squadron that came into to New Zealand in 1840. But you ask any of our leading academics and they'll say that the final draft of the Treaty of Waitangi in English, that final draft, went missing in sometime in February 1840. And but it was found again, definitely found again in 1989 by the Littlewood family at Pukekohe. So now we can see that Reverend Henry Williams did a perfect translation with his son Edward, and we can absolutely rely on the wording of Te Toritio Waitangi. And that one, excuse me if I don't say my Maori correctly, says in Article 2 that the rights of the treaty are kina rangatira, kina hapu, kina tangata katoa nutarani, to the chiefs and the tribes and to all the people of New Zealand. It's all encompassing. and yet this document of unification that was given to us, this great gift that was given to us in 1840, got turned into a document of apartheid after 1975 by all of this interference with it, and all of this reinterpretation and all of this reinvention, which has led on to the reinvention of a whole lot of our history as well. And yeah, Alan got, you know, quite involved in all of that.
How would you describe Alan Titford? What kind of man is he?
Yeah, Alan, he can be a bit of a grumpy bastard at times, excuse my French, but I travelled with him extensively and he was very entertaining. He was generally happy and joking and everything like that. He is quite a shrewd businessman. I interacted with the family a lot, and he was a great provider. The family always seemed to have plenty of money. All the kids seemed to have designer clothing and gear. The cupboards were overflowing with all of the kiddie luxuries of potato chips and lollies and drinks and all of that stuff. The kids all had all of the latest electronic gear, you know, the cell phones, the Xboxes and all those sorts of things. So he was a very good provider. He spent a lot of time away from the home beyond about 2005, so he was very rarely there. But I never ever saw him to be violent. I never got, I mean, it was a sort of a dysfunctional family in many respects, but not any more dysfunctional than a hell of a lot of families I've been associated with. They were very colourful in their language. If you were there, you know, they'd be using the F word all the time, and different of the children would be talking to each other and, you know, reminding them of their pedigrees, you know. But I think they all had a pretty good life, really. In that last year that he was with the children, in the first half of that year, I think he spent something like $25,000 in wages paying the older children for doing milking, from which they were able to buy very nice vehicles. Alyssa had a really nice Hyundai car, and James had a nice little ute, really nice ute. They were doing fine.
During the time that he was going through the, you know, through the legal challenges, you know, with Te Roroa, what kind of pressures was he under?
He was under tremendous pressure, terrible pressure. I mean,
who was there to support him through that?
Yeah, she was, and
no, I was saying, who's there to?
Oh, who was? Oh, I thought you said Sue was there to support. Yeah, really just Sue. The police pretty much abandoned them, left them in the middle of Apache country with, you know, real weed-whacked mad people. Like there was one guy, Hui Turore, he was pretty violent. Yeah, whenever they called for help from the police, they rarely got any. If Alan got fired at, he called the police would come out and take Alan's weapons off him, take his own rifle, or arrest him and throw him in jail. You know, the original claim, which was utterly spurious, was for only two very small plots of land, Manufetai and Whangariki, two so-called forgotten reserves that were definitely not forgotten. But in the end, with all of the pressures and everything like that, they just flogged his whole farm. 1,746 acres.
So who was there, you know, behind him? Like, when did you come onto the scene, and when did you eventually meet Alan? Because there were, you know, people like Ross Baker, I understand, at that time, who'd also come in to help him.
Yeah, I don't know. I probably got kind of... I was going up to the area around the bluff to do archaeological stuff, and I got to meet with him and everything. You know, I had met him, I think, the first time in 1998, but didn't have much association until probably 2002 or something like that, you know. Yeah, and I was studying into my work on the treaty after that, and he took a real interest in that. Yeah.
So in terms of the, the Treaty of Waitangi Act, it eventually got amended because of, the pressure that was put on Alan. So that would have been, I guess, a good thing that came out of that whole debate.
You say it got amended. In what regard? What do you?
The Treaty of Waitangi Amendment Act in 1992.
I don't think it really changed the treaty interpretation very much.
In terms of people being able to, Māori being able to claim for private land.
Oh, okay, yeah, you're going back to that. Well, I mean, even to this day, John Key is saying that no private land will ever be lost to a Waitangi treaty claim. But it's happened to many, many families. Alan Titford, Don Harrison, the Bibbies, a whole swag of farms up that coast all got taken, and yeah, so that one doesn't really hold water. Yeah.